So the theme of tonight's Opportunity Zones Meetup is optimal opportunity zones. And a few weeks ago, in the midst of looking at dozens of different projects in different states and across the state of Colorado, a couple people asked me from different directions, well, what would be the best possible opportunity zone project? And I had to step back from the being deep in the weeds with talking to different people about anything from a multifamily residence project in Gunnison to a single family residence project here in Denver to some massive projects like you're going to hear about later tonight, and go, well, just what would that be? And it ends up asking a lot of different questions. So for those of you who are familiar, the Opportunity Zone tax legislation creates incentive for people to take money where they've earned it, have capital gains, roll that over into an investment, into an Opportunity Zone fund, which will in turn invest that directly into a property or into a particular business. And the best part of the benefits are if you leave that money in long enough, you get more and more benefits, and the greatest benefit is if you leave the investment in for 10 years, all the gain in that particular investment is tax-free. So there are some incentives there for deferral of your capital gains tax. There's some incentives for holding it 5 and 7 years that reduce the amount of that tax, but the big deal, the big winner in this is your investment has a potential to go up in value, and all that upward movement could be tax-free at the end of 10 years. So a lot of people were looking at real estate projects, and we said, yes, there's some great projects out there. You can make good money off those, and depends upon how they're structured, though. At some point, you're going to have a maximum price that can be paid for the real estate. You're going to have a maximum price that you can earn through that project unless you're somehow selling the property and you're rolling the project over in order to continue getting gains over a period of time. On the other end, we're looking at businesses in an opportunity zone that could be gazelles or unicorns, a future Amazon type of high digital, high scale ability type of project where the upside gains could be tremendous. And so when you look at the tax impact at the end of the 10-year time period, there will be so much money you can make from a single real estate project, which can meet all of your investment criteria as an investor, or if you're trying to hit that home run for long distance, you might be looking at a fast-growing, agile, digital type of company where in a small footprint and relatively small capital, this thing may grow forever and become huge, and all that upside potential could become tax-free. So in looking at that, we looked across all the opportunity zones in Colorado, and real estate will play a big role in this. If you look into the urban area here along the Front Range, we have a lot of great projects where, as we're going to talk about later, these projects can make good money in real estate, whereas if you go out to some of the rural areas, and about 60% of the projects in Colorado are in rural areas, there's only going to be so much gain that you can expect to get out of that. You're not going to suddenly see 100,000 people converge on Crowley County and start building out there because there's really no reason for them to locate in that particular vicinity. However, along the western slope, we're seeing all kinds of projects there. We're seeing a few across the Middle Range, and Alamosa is actually, I feel like a weatherman right now. So this is the weather for today. This is where it's going to go. We're seeing a lot of activity, and different communities are moving at different speeds. So right now, Grand Junction, where the Grand Junction Economic Development Partnership is probably the city who's got their act together most and is out in front looking at projects and bringing them together. We also have Colorado Springs is doing a really good job. I was just on a panel for Aurora EDC on Wednesday night last week, and they have probably the largest collection of properties under opportunity zones, in my mind, that in the aggregate are going to be worth more than all the other projects out there. They're just huge, big parcels of land that are going to be developed. So we're seeing different things, but within that framework, we're going, well, what would be the best? And it depends. So if I'm an investor and I'm looking at a project, my primary metric is return on investment. I put in $100, how much of that am I going to get back in 10 years? If I put in 100 and I get back 200, and that $100 appreciation is tax-free, then that's my gain. If I do something differently, like put it into a digital company, and I put in 100 and I get $1,000 back in 10 years, and 900 of that is tax-free, then that's a better deal. But now we're talking the difference between a fairly well-known business model for real estate with real estate as collateral, a more secure type of investment, and getting into cowboy projects where there's a lot of risk, the uncertainties are uncountable, and so it matters. So then we come back and we say, well, how would you make the most money out of this particular project? Is it something that's important just to the investor, or how's it look from the community standpoint? And if it's a business looking for money, they don't care what the ROI is to the investor. As long as they get enough money to do what they want to do, they can move their business forward. So the perspective changes entirely. When I ask people, I says, what's an optimum project? Well, if I want to start up a brand new business with a natural food bar, and I want to do it in Fort Morgan, where I'm going to be tomorrow meeting with Greg Thomason about their opportunity zone, then we're going to go, all I need is enough money to get to the next level. I don't want to pay too high of a price. I want to get money that's competitive relative to all the other money that's out there. I'm still probably going to go to the bank and leverage this as heavily as possible to get my total aggregate cost of money down, but I'm going to look at it differently. If I'm looking at it from the community standpoint, these communities are the beneficiaries of Opportunity Zone legislation. The money that comes into that community is intended to stir the economic pot, to create economic activity, starting primarily with jobs and then working its way out into all the other infrastructure issues that are there. And if enough money comes in, it's expected that these communities may catch up or even surpass some of the more affluent communities if enough money is brought into that area. But if the money's not brought in the right fashion, in the right manner, we may see counter problems. So we're seeing a lot of people complaining about gentrification, about how the amount of money that's coming into an area will displace all the local residents. It'll create kind of an economic refugee type of problem. So Aurora is already talking about how people are coming out of Denver who are being pushed out of Denver because of higher real estate prices, and there's no places in Aurora that are ready to receive them at an income level where they're at. And so we're seeing this problem occur there. And in some communities across the United States, they're saying this problem, this economic community is so distressed that it really can't be fixed. So it isn't like we're going to help residents stay in place and we're going to upgrade the properties where they're at. We're probably going to have to scrape it and basically do a complete rebuild, which is going to push all those residents out of the community and into another location. So it varies, as I say, in talking about what is an optimal opportunity zone. You're going to be looking at the question of who's asking the question. If it's an investor, they're looking at an ROI. They're going to balance that against what is the risk associated with that particular return. Is it going to be balanced against something they're comfortable with, a type of investment they've done before, or is it they're going to go at risk and start doing something that's more experimental? I did talk to a family fund a couple weeks ago. They had just cashed in $1 million of capital gains, and they said, this is what we do. We do real estate. That's not what we want to do with this money. We want to experiment. We want to try new things and see where this takes us to, because this is all kind of found mad money, all well and good. We've talked to investors who are being managed by large funds. And the people who are managing those funds tend to be more conservative. They've got a fiduciary obligation to the people whose money they're holding, and they're going to say, yeah, I can make a whole lot more money over here, or I might not. I'd rather have something where I'm highly certain I'm going to get good money, not necessarily great money, but good money over time. And one of the key factors, the key distinctions about opportunity zones is that it's a 10-year investment to get the maximum gain. And most investment today is shorter term, 1, 2, or 3 years of an investment where they expect to put the money in and then cash out so they can roll their money over into something else. And Opportunity Zones is forcing people all along the path here to rethink this, to go, where am I going to be in 10 years? 10 years could be 2, 3, or 4 technological revolutions. It could be a full recession period. All these things could come into play, which would impact who and why is going to want to invest and how long they want to put their money at risk. So for the question, when we're talking about this, the greater question is, can we do all these at once? Can we do a real estate project that's a home to a whole bunch of digital high-flying companies that's creating lots of jobs that will still be there in 20 years, so the community is not doing an up and down and it's actually getting out ahead, but it's doing it by creating jobs in a way within a community where the real estate is also being developed at the same time. So if any of you have a perfect project, please talk to me afterwards. I'd enjoy having that conversation.
Mm-hmm.